I do not perceive my own best interests. 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 Thank you all so much for joining me. I'm forgiveness teacher from the Ozarks, Miracle Willie, and we're ready for lesson 24 here on January the 24th of 2024, Wednesday. We're reading from the 1992 edition, published by Foundation for Inner Peace, which you can find it online at acim.org, the text, or you can buy a book from them. But you can read the whole thing on a device, have one device for reading it, one device to listen to me, and you're set. I do not perceive my own best interests, or get you a book. And if you can't afford one, or you need one, if you're a new student, you've never been through the course, let me know. I like to buy books for first-time students, whether you have the money or not. After you've decided it's worthwhile, you'll probably want to do the same thing for others. I do not perceive my own best interests. In no situation that arises do you realize the outcome that would make you happy. Therefore, you have no guide to appropriate action and no way of judging the result. What you do is determined by your perception of the situation, and that perception is wrong. It is inevitable, then, that you will not serve your own best interests. Yet they are your only goal in any situation which is correctly perceived. Otherwise, you will not recognize what they are. If you realize that you do not perceive your own best interests, you could be taught what they are. But in the presence of your conviction that you do know what they are, you cannot learn. The idea for today is a step toward opening your mind so that learning can begin. The exercises for today require much more honesty than you are accustomed to using. We'll come back and read the entirety of the lesson right before we meditate at our close. But for right now, just know that our lesson today is I do not perceive my own best interests. And we're going to learn to have an open mind so that we can be shown what is truly best for us. And we're going to, our lesson in our text reading today is going to go along really well with why we don't know what's our best interest. Judgment and the authority problem, which is in chapter 3, the innocent perception, Roman numeral 6, judgment and the authority problem. We have already discussed the last judgment, but in insufficient detail. After the last judgment, there will be no more. Judgment is symbolic because beyond perception there is no judgment. When the Bible says, "Judge not that you be not judged," it means that if you judge the reality of others, you will be unable to avoid judging your own. Matthew chapter 7, verse 1 through 3. And a lot of people, it's real common to have stage fright, to get up and public speak. But what are they doing when they're sitting listening to public speakers? The ones that have the most stage fright are the ones that have been spending their time judging who's speaking. And so there's an example of judge not that you be not judged. It means that if you judge the reality of others, you will be unable to avoid judging your own. Paragraph 2. The choice to judge rather than to know is the cause of the loss of peace. Finding the cause of the loss of peace is worth a great deal. The choice to judge rather than to know is the cause of the loss of peace. Judgment is the process on which perception but not knowledge rests. I have discussed this before in terms of the selectivity of perception. pointing out that evaluation is its obvious prerequisite. Judgment always involves rejection. It never emphasizes only the positive aspects of what is judged, whether in you or in others. What has been perceived and rejected or judged and found wanting remains in your mind because it has been perceived. One of the illusions from which you suffer is the belief that what you judged against has no effect. This cannot be true unless you also believe that what you judged against does not exist. You evidently do not believe this, or you would not have judged against it. In the end, it does not matter whether your judgment is right or wrong. Either way, you're placing your belief in the unreal. This cannot be avoided in any type of judgment because it implies the belief that reality is yours to select from. You have no idea of the tremendous release and deep peace that comes from meeting yourself and your brothers totally without judgment. Listen to that again, first sentence, paragraph 3. You have no idea of the tremendous release and deep peace that comes from meeting yourself and your brothers totally without judgment. When you recognize what you are and what your brothers are, you will realize that judging them in any way is without meaning. In fact, their meaning is lost to you precisely because you are judging them. All uncertainty comes from the belief that you are under the coercion of judgment. You do not need judgment to organize your life, and you certainly do not need it to organize yourself. In the presence of knowledge, all judgment is automatically suspended, and this is the process that enables recognition to replace perception. 4. You are very fearful of everything you have perceived but have refused to accept. You believe that because you have refused to accept it, you have lost control over it. This is why you see it in nightmares and in pleasant disguises in what seem to be your happier dreams. Nothing that you have refused to accept can be brought into awareness. It is not dangerous in itself, but you have made it seem dangerous to you. When you feel tired, it is because you have judged yourself as capable of being tired. When you feel tired, it is because you have judged yourself as capable of being tired. When you laugh at someone, it is because you have judged him as unworthy. When you laugh at yourself, you must laugh at others, if only because you cannot tolerate the idea of being more unworthy than they are. All this makes you feel tired because it is essentially disheartening. You are not really capable of being tired, but you are very capable of wearying yourself. The strain of constant judgment is virtually intolerable. And you may find that as you become less and less judgmental, you'll need less and less sleep. The strain of constant judgment is virtually intolerable. It is curious that an ability so debilitating would be so deeply cherished. Yet if you wish to be either the author of reality, you will insist on holding on to judgment. You will also regard judgment with fear, believing that it will someday be used against you. This belief can exist only to the extent that you believe in the efficacy of judgment as a weapon of defense for your own authority. 6. God offers only mercy. God offers only mercy. If you have had the distortion that God's a judgmental God, take this to heart. God offers only mercy. Your words should reflect only mercy because that is what you have received and that is what you should give. Justice is a temporary expedient or an attempt to teach you the meaning of mercy. It is judgmental only because you are capable of injustice. 7. I have spoken of different symptoms, and at that level there is almost endless variation. On the symptom level, almost endless variation. There is, however, only one cause for all of them: the authority problem. This is the root of all evil. The authority problem is the root of all evil. Of course, that's a quote taken, and I didn't write down where that's taken from. The root of all, it says the love of money is the root of all evil, but it's the idea. And where is that? I'm sorry, I forgot. I'll put it in the description below, but I failed to find out where that one's at for you. And I don't remember. It's a New Testament. Paul said it, but I can't remember, and I don't want to take a guess at it. We'll find it, and I'll put it in the description. Every symptom the ego makes involves a contradiction in terms, because the mind is split between the ego and the Holy Spirit, so that whatever the ego makes is incomplete and contradictory. This untenable position is the result of the authority problem, which it accepts the one inconceivable thought as its premise, can produce only ideas that are inconceivable. So what is this untenable situation? Let's back it up. Every symptom the ego makes involves a contradiction in terms, because the mind is split between the ego and the Holy Spirit, so that whatever the ego makes is incomplete and contradictory. This untenable position is the result of the authority problem, which, because it accepts the one inconceivable thought as its premise, can produce only ideas that are inconceivable. That inconceivable thought that you are in competition with God, that you can decide separately away from God's will what you can do and what will make you happy, which is inconceivable. The issue of authority is really a question of authorship. When you have an authority problem, it is always because you believe you are the author of yourself and project your delusions onto others. You then perceive the situation as one in which others are literally fighting you for your authorship. This is the fundamental error of all those who believe they have usurped the power of God. This belief is very frightening to them, but hardly troubles God. This belief is very frightening to them, but it hardly troubles God. He is, however, eager to undo it, not to punish his children, but only because he knows that it makes them unhappy. He doesn't want to punish us. He just wants us to be happy. God's creations are given their true authorship, but you prefer to be anonymous when you choose to separate yourself from your author. Being uncertain of your true authorship, you believe that your creation was anonymous. This leaves you in a position where it sounds meaningful to believe that you created yourself. The dispute over authorship has left such uncertainty in your mind that it may even doubt whether you really exist at all. That your mind may doubt whether it even exists at all. Paragraph 9. Only those who give over all desire to reject can know that their own rejection is impossible. Well, let's let that be a goal that we have then, to give over all desire to reject. Let's not reject any brothers or sisters, which let's see everyone as our brothers and sisters. Let's accept them with mercy, without judgment. Only those who give over all desire to reject can know that their own rejection is impossible. You've not usurped the power of God, but you have lost it. Fortunately, to lose something does not mean that it has gone. So let's read that again. Only those who give over all desire to reject can know that their own rejection is impossible. You've not usurped the power of God, but you have lost it. Fortunately, to lose something does not mean that it has gone. It merely means that you do not remember where it is. Its existence does not depend on your ability to identify it or even to place it. It is possible to look on reality without judgment and merely know that it is there. It is possible to look on reality without judgment and know that it is there. Paragraph 10. Peace is a natural heritage of spirit. Everyone is free to refuse, to accept his inheritance. But he is not free to establish what his inheritance is. Again, peace is a natural heritage of spirit. Everyone is free to refuse to accept his inheritance, but he is not free to establish what his inheritance is. The problem everyone must decide is the fundamental question of authorship. All fear comes ultimately and sometimes by way of very devious routes from the denial of authorship, spelled with a capital A on authorship, referring to God. To deny his authorship, again, capital authorship, capital A for authorship. To deny his authorship is to deny yourself the reason for your peace, so that you see yourself only in segments. This strange perception is the authority problem. And the last paragraph, 11, there is no one who does not feel that he is imprisoned in some way. There is no one who does not feel that he is imprisoned in some way. If this is the result of his own free will, he must regard his will as not free, or the circular reasoning in this position would be quite apparent. Let's read it again. There is no one who does not feel that he is imprisoned in some way. If this is the result of his own free will, he must regard his will as not free, or the circular reasoning in this position would be quite apparent. Free will must lead to freedom. Judgment always imprisons because it separates segments of reality by the unstable scales of desire. Wishes are not facts. To wish is to imply that willing is not sufficient. That's something, wishes are not fact. To wish is to imply that willing is not sufficient. Yet no one in his right mind believes that what is wished is as real as what is willed. Instead of seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, which is Matthew chapter 6, verse 33, Jesus speaking on the Sermon on the Mount. Instead of seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, say, will ye first the kingdom of heaven? And you have said, I know what I am, and I accept my own inheritance. Okay, well did I say that was in Matthew chapter 6, verse 33? And so we also looked in Matthew chapter 7, verse 1 through 3, when it says, judge not that you be not judged. So both of those are there on the Sermon on the Mount, which Jesus spoke. And I'll find that other passage, the root of all evil, and I'll post it in the description. You could probably find it yourself real easy. Just read the words into your search engine, and it'll probably pop right up. Put the word Bible in there, maybe. I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. So before we read that, let's just, what's going on around the world? Beer Can Appreciation Day. First beer can was actually released to the public, I guess, trying as to sell them on this day in 1935. Belly Laugh Day. That's a good thing to do. Just have some good old wholesome laughter for yourself. Keep you healthy and happy. Change a Pet's Life Day. International Mobile Phone Recycling Day. Library Selfie Day. National Compliment Day. And I want to compliment you for making 24 days through A Course in Miracles. You're learning a lot. And we're going to have the complete reversal of the thoughts that were keeping us from being at peace, to learning how to let our native identity flow into us or be manifest in this world. So anyway, I'm complimenting you for following along. National Just Do It Day. We've had our New Year's resolutions, and now just do it. Just keep your yourself doing what it is that you truly want to do. National Peanut Butter Day. Oh, and I wanted to tell you, peanut, they're Auricus hypogea, I think is how you pronounce the species. It's the scientific name for peanut. They also are called goobers, ground nuts, ground peas, earth nuts, pinda, monkey nut, and manila nut. They belong to the legume family, which also contains peas and beans. Found that on ars.usda.gov. And I also wanted to mention that peanut butter is not a complete protein. It doesn't have all the essential amino acids. It lacks only one, is my understanding. But that one it lacks is high in bread. So bread and peanut butter, and you're good. You're going to have all your complete protein. And that's true about all your grains. Many of your grains don't have all the essential amino acids to give you complete protein, but the legumes have it. So if you eat a legume and a grain, a bean or a pea and a grain, oats, corn, wheat, you'll get a complete protein. There are some plants that have a complete protein. Soy is one. Quinoa is one. Flax and hemp seed. All those are plants that have complete proteins. Talk like a grizzled prospector day. And cut leaf elderberry in edible landscaping is the next elderberry. And this is a European elderberry. The cut leaf elderberry, a most beautiful form of elderberry, a 6 to 8 foot shrub with deep cut lobed leaves, followed by large heads of creamy white flowers and shiny berries. Pollinate with black lace, spaced 6 to 8 foot apart, zones 3 through 9. So that's it. Thank you, edible landscaping. And out of permaculture, consider using flowers to attract beneficial insects that are, like predatory insects that will, and she's going to talk about a few different types, but the one we'll bring our attention to today is the umbellaphoria or the umbelliferous, which are, that'd be carrots, fennel, parsley, dill. What is there any other ones there? Anyway, there's a whole bunch of those flowers that tend to attract beneficial insects. So consider using those in your garden. Now I can escape from the world I see by giving up. Attack thoughts was yesterday. Today I do not perceive my own best interests. In no situation that arises do you realize the outcome that would make you happy. Therefore, you have no guide to appropriate action and no way of judging the result. What you do is determined by your perception of the situation, and that perception is wrong. It is inevitable, then, that you will not serve your own best interests, yet they are your only goal in any situation which is correctly perceived. Otherwise, you will not recognize what they are. If you realize that you do not perceive your own best interests, you could be taught what they are. But in the presence of your conviction that you do know what they are, you cannot learn. The idea for today is a step toward opening your mind so that learning can begin. The exercises for today require much more honesty than you are accustomed to using. A few subjects, honestly and carefully considered in each of the 5 practice periods which should be undertaken today, will be more helpful than a more cursory examination of a large number. 2 minutes are suggested for each of the mind-searching periods which the exercises involve. The practice period should begin with repeating the idea for the day, followed by searching the mind with closed eyes for unresolved situations about which you're currently concerned. The emphasis should be on uncovering the outcome you want. You will quickly realize that you have a number of goals in mind as part of the desired outcome, and also that these goals are on different levels and often conflict. In applying the idea for today, name each situation that occurs to you and then enumerate carefully as many goals as possible that you would like to be met in its situation. The form of each application should be roughly as follows. In the situation involving blank, I would like blank to happen, and so on. Try to cover as many different kinds of outcomes as may honestly occur to you, even if some of them do not appear to be directly related to the situation or even to be inherent in it at all. If these exercises are done properly, you will quickly recognize that you're making a large number of demands of the situation which have nothing to do with it. You will also recognize that many of your goals are contradictory, that you have no unified outcome in mind, and that you must experience disappointment in connection with some of your goals, however the situation turns out. After covering the list of as many hoped-for goals as possible, for each unresolved situation that crosses your mind, say to yourself, I do not perceive my own best interests in this situation, and go on to the next one. Okay, well, let's close with a little song, and maybe you can do that as we'll kind of take a couple minutes, and you can do it as we sing. I do not perceive my own best interests. 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 In the situation involving, you fill in the blank, I would like to happen, and what else? And to happen, and that's the blank, the hum. Let's do it again. In the situation involving, I would like to happen, and to happen, and to happen. I do not perceive my own best interests in this situation. One more time. In the situation involving, I would like to happen, and to happen, and to happen. I do not perceive my own best interests in this situation. I do not perceive my own best interests. I do not perceive my own best interests. I do not perceive my own best interests. So let's have an open mind, and let's look at our conflicting thoughts and let them go. And our word for peace in Uganda, they speak the Luganda language, and it's Emirembe. Emirembe. And there's a beautiful song. I'll put the link to it on YouTube, which a woman singing that song, or that word, Emirembe. Until tomorrow, I do not perceive my own best interests. Emirembe.